Welcome to the Trainer Talk, where we discuss topics related to health and fitness to help you gain back control of your health and fitness and become the absolute best version of yourself physically and mentally. Enjoy. In today's episode of the Trainer Talk, we talk about recovery and how important recovery actually is, because it's often overlooked and neglected from a lot of people that are working toward their fitness goals. They think that they need to train as much as possible, whether it's weight training and cardio and running, and they don't focus enough on the recovery, which is going to be your sleep and your nutrition, because the actual growth and progress happens while you recover. It does not happen during the actual training. So that's what we dive into, and we help give you some advice and tips on how to get better recovery and match it to your training to get the most out of your workouts. Enjoy.
So athletes get injured, right? With the amount of training that we go through and the intensity, it's a lot of times really hard to avoid. And I know you've had your fair share of injuries in your life. So, do you have any right now that are limiting you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're full-on injuries, but I definitely have some limitations right now. Like, the body is kind of beat up a little bit. Something going on in the shoulder. I think it's a rotator cuff. My elbow, a little bit of pain there, and then lower back. I've dealt with issues since I was 18, so 11 years I've been dealing with issues with my lower back. And then the knee last year was really bad, to where, like, when I bent halfway down and, if I was setting up for a deadlift or a clean or snatch, it would just like trigger a nerve, and it would like give out. And so basically what that does, when I experience like pain in my back or like the knee, I think it was just neglecting taking care of those, the joints and my core, and not doing enough like mobility and flexibility and recovery. And that's such a huge, crucial part of training that people often neglect or overlook, especially for people that are starting out or that have like a really big goal of theirs that they want to try. Like, people, let's say you're going and you're training for a marathon, so you start running 4 or 5 days a week and you're putting all these miles in, and you're not combating the training with the proper recovery protocol. Same thing with like CrossFit. Like, we've got competitions coming up, we're doing some different things. Basically, the more training volume you add, the more recovery you also have to add. And so basically an injury most of the time will just come from too much training intensity or volume, and the recovery is not matched. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's neglecting, okay, I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm not spending enough time properly warming up for our training bouts. I'm not spending enough time recovering after each training. So foam rolling, stretching, mobility work, and then just focusing on making sure that I'm healthy. And there's a lot with nutrition that comes into play with that. I definitely think that I get enough quality nutrition. It's just more of the mobility work and the recovery as far as sleep and stuff like that goes. But
so there's a lot of factors into it. And
yeah,
the main point is, if your training's here, your recovery needs to be here.
Yes.
If it's down here, you're going to start seeing things like what issues with the shoulder. Like, depends what you're doing, but especially if you're working out to compete, and like not just for fun, like we're doing.
And it's tricky because like the programming that we follow is a competition level programming. So I mean, they've got an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions, sometimes 2 in a day, and that's for basically competitive CrossFit athletes. Well, what we don't take into account is like, okay, those people that are training at that level, their life revolves around that training. Like, they literally sleep, eat, and train.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty much it. Whereas like us, we get up at 4 or 5 a.m. We work, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours in a day, 5-6 days a week. Like, so what I realized after a couple of years of following this competitive training program, doing 2 hour workouts 5 days a week plus an active recovery day, is that I don't get as much sleep as them. I don't spend enough time doing the mobility work and the flexibility work. And so I was actually kind of deteriorating. Like I was getting hurt and I wasn't able to even train as hard as I wanted. I didn't have the energy for my workouts. So I actually dialed it back on my training to match the amount of recovery I could put in. Okay, if I can only get 7.5 hours of sleep when I need 9, I'll dial back my training. And I actually got better results that way because I felt more energized. I felt more recovered. I was able to put more effort into my workouts, even though I was doing less. And I was still, because it was more matched. So you could even reverse it. It's like, okay, how much time can I actually invest in my recovery that's going to, not affect the quality of my life or anything like that? And then just reduce or add your training to match that.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I can only sleep 7 hours and let's say I give myself 15 minutes warm up, 15 minutes cool down, how much training can I handle? And that's where you got to kind of find a sweet spot.
Your training's dependent on your recovery rather
It is,
than
100%,
the opposite.
Yeah, because your training, it's not, you don't build muscle while you're working out. Like we've gone over this before, we kind of know this, that you don't build muscle in the middle of the training. It's when you recover, when you eat, and when you sleep. That's when the muscle's actually built. And then same thing for strength or performance in general, is that adaptation is created once you recover from your training. So your training brings the stimulus for the change, and then you actually change once you can recover from it. If you don't recover, you don't actually make any changes. So like you can see a lot of people that are under recovering, but they're overtraining and they're not matching it. They'll stay at the same level. Like they won't increase in their strength. They won't make the body composition changes they want because they're pushing almost too hard and not enough recovery to match it. So they're not actually making, even though they're working really hard, they're not making progress that they want.
Yeah, I think that's what I experienced because like my strength numbers actually went down because like I was having that pain in my back and my knee and my shoulder. So it's like, okay, my numbers aren't going anywhere because I wasn't recovering enough.
Yeah.
To make that growth and make that change.
So oftentimes when people are hitting these plateaus or not seeing an increase in strength, their solution is to train harder, up the volume, up the intensity, like up the weight. When in reality, what they need to do is recover more because, like you said, that's when the adaptation or the muscle is actually being grown during the recovery process. So that's a really common misconception.
Yeah. And actually, like, for me, like I was trying that, like I was trying to like match the programming and like do all the extra stuff. And I found that I was just running out of energy. Like I just felt run down. I was always really sore. Not even just like general soreness, but like achy, like the joints and everything. And that's when I knew that I needed to like, okay, I need to change something up and just take some time off. After quarterfinals, like I went like probably a solid 2 or 3 months at a lower volume. I was only doing maybe 2 metcons a week, and just focusing on more accessory work and kind of rebuilding just the basic strength stuff, reducing the total volume and weights that I was using. And I think that's something that I really neglected because I just liked training hard for so long. I just literally trained hard every single week, 5 days a week for the last 10 years. And I think it was it you that asked like when's the last time I just took a break?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I took 2 weeks off in the last year. But no, I think there needs to be kind of like a season for us. We train pretty hard for a CrossFit season, which is basically February through like April, May. And so what I realized was it's really good for me to take that 2 to 3 month period where it's just a lot less volume, still doing some training, but like letting my body kind of recover and recoup, and then ramp up the training throughout the season, kind of like a sports season, right? You have a block where you're really intense and getting in shape for the season, and then during the season it's kind of maintenance mode, and then maybe you take a whole couple of months off before you start your next, so that's how I've started to treat it. But
yeah, because I remember when I first came here and like you were talking about like right after the open or right after quarterfinals, you just like go right back into training. And like so many people have done that. But I feel like when you do that after pushing your body to that intense level, Like you have to have that recovery, otherwise you will get injured, or
Mhm.
you just won't have as good a training sessions, that sort of thing. And those breaks actually allow you to like recover and actually hit the weights a little bit harder or push a little bit more intense in your metcons, and giving that your body that break, your mind the break, especially just from
Yeah.
like pushing hard and like always feeling like you have to be doing this everything, and um, giving yourself the space to like just let yourself recover and everything. You're able to push harder and get more results that way. Because like if you just pushed hard all the time, eventually your body would get run down, or just like you just get so much fatigue accumulation. Like that's one thing that um, if you just train hard all the time, you don't recover, you don't take those back off times, your fatigue just accumulates and accumulates, and it starts really wearing on your body, and you're not able to like say you have to hit like a threshold to see changes, right? And say you're not able to lift the weights necessary to get to that threshold because you're just so run down. Well, you're not going to make any results that way because you're not getting that minimum threshold for change.
Mhm.
Right.
So having that time to just like back off and then return to it, you're actually able to push harder, make better results, even if you're not working as much.
So touch on like deload weeks. So like in our programming right now, there's usually 1 week, like every 8,
Yeah.
I think, maybe 8 or 12, where we have like a deload week. So talk a little bit about that and why that's important.
Yeah. So deload, it can vary on the program. Sometimes it's after 4 weeks, or sometimes it's after 12 weeks. It also depends on the person what you would need. But a deload, the purpose of that is you push really hard in the weeks leading up to it. You know, you're increasing the weight, you're increasing the volume, whatever way that you're doing it to increase the intensity, so that way you have changes across those weeks. And then you get to the end of it and you're very fatigued, your central nervous system, like your whole body's just kind of like taxed from all the training you've done. Muscles and joints might be a little bit achy. You do the deload, which is you either back off on the volume or you back off on the loading, and still do the exercises just to like keep your body moving. But what it does is it allows your body to recover and super compensate from that overtraining. So it's technically not overtraining yet, but you're getting very close to it. So if you just kept going and you didn't take a deload, you'd reach that overtraining point where you either get an injury, or you know your numbers, you're not able to hit your strength numbers because you didn't take that break. Taking that break allows you to have your body recover and then get you ready for the next cycle. So sometimes, like before a competition, actually always before a competition, Olympic weightlifters, power lifters, anyone who's going for like max lifts, like we're kind of taking a deload this week just because we have a competition this weekend. You back off on the volume, or they call them back off weeks, to then allow your body to super compensate. So that way, that next week or for that competition that you're kind of preparing for, you're able to actually feel really, really good in your lifts, and you have the energy. You've recovered from all the hard training, and then you get that compensation of the muscles of your central nervous system to be able to lift more weight, even more weight than you were able to before. So it's just that little bit of back off, that little bit of recovery right before it, and then like you still keep doing the lifts and everything like that. It's just to keep your body primed for then when you reach that point where you need to be at that peak level of, you know, max lifts or max performance. Runners do the same thing too. Just because you don't want your body all beat up going into competition, because then you're not going to perform your best.
Yep.
So it allows you to perform even better that way.
Yeah.
So we do deload weeks, and then we're starting to add in some more recovery activities like the mobility we've been doing the last couple of days, the stretching. Those
Core,
are core.
even just focusing on building our core strength.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of your strength starts from the core and extends to your extremities. And I think that's something I've neglected, especially for my back. It's like, it was very eye-opening to me. I listened on a podcast where the guy in the podcast was talking about a powerlifter. And okay, let's say the powerlifter's got, his legs are capable of deadlifting 800 pounds. His core and his back are capable of deadlifting 800 pounds, but then his grip, he can only hold 500 pounds. So he could do all the training he wants for his legs, his back, and get that up to 1,000 pounds. But if he can only grip 500, he's never going to be able to lift more. So it's like focus on the areas that are the weakest, and that will help you in the long run. So if you have an injury or a weak point, for me, it's my core, my knee, my shoulder. So guess what I'm going to start focusing on? I'm going to start focusing on, okay, what do I need to help improve my knee, my back, and my shoulder, rather than going and killing myself in my CrossFit workouts. So it's taking a step back and so many people that come to us are like, oh yeah, I'd love to work out, but like I've got a bad back, or I've got a bad shoulder, a bad knee. It's like there's a million things that you can still do. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to be able to help you actually improve that pain by helping you go through some exercises to help it build back up. And then we can help you with the recovery process too, so that you can actually move better and feel better. But just had to say that.
No, that's good, because I'm just kind of going over all of the different types of recovery tools that we have. So like I said, we just started doing the mobility with the app that just takes us through like a 15-minute
basically
exercise.
like foam rolling, banded stretches, body weight stretches, kind of mobility work. So like some of them are functional. We could talk about like recovery tools now, like ways to recover. Obviously a huge one, the number one is sleep. For sure. Definitely sleep. Like making sure that it's really hard to get enough sleep all the time. I get it. Like people got kids to put to bed and then they want to wind down for a little while. They got to get up early, get the kids up, get to work, whatever it is. So you won't always be able to maximize the amount of sleep that you get, but you 100% can maximize the quality of sleep that you get. So we've talked about this 100 times in our episodes now. Like this is number 117. We've probably talked about sleep at least almost every single one. So for me, and what I recommend, and just some really, really good ways, is get off your electronics 30 minutes before bed, just to kind of let your brain take a break and get started to wind down. When you're on your screen, your brain is stimulated just like as if it was daylight out. You're not going to fall asleep as fast. So get the screens put away, maybe read or plan for the day tomorrow, chat with your kids or your husband, whatever you want to do. Number 2 is make sure your room is cool and pitch black. We sleep better and you recover better when your body's in a cool state rather than like everybody's been in a hot summer night and it's like you wake up sweating and tossing and turning. You just don't get as much deep sleep. And then also like I like to have white noise on in the background. So I usually have a fan on. I got blackout curtains, no electronics for light in the room. And then we even have a cooling mattress cover. So that way we don't wake up really, really sweaty in the night too. And then just make sure that you're not eating a bunch of food or drinking a ton of water right before bed, because you're probably gonna have to get up and go to the bathroom a couple times. I still do like once a night, but if you get up more than once, like 2-3 times, it just disrupts your sleep so bad. So it's more about getting the REM sleep and the deep sleep. So the deep sleeps recover your body, REM sleeps recover your mind. And so many people are sleep deprived, not just on time, but on the deep stages. So most people, if they are on their electronics, if they do have a poor diet, if they are overstimulated with caffeine, if they drink alcohol, they are only going to get a light stage of sleep. So they're probably getting less than half the deep sleep and REM sleep that they need. And that's why they wake up groggy and brain fog, and they need stimulants because their brain isn't recovering and their body's not recovering to even be able to handle the day. So it's really a double-edged sword when you're caffeinating to get energy, but then it keeps you up and you can't sleep. And then it's just like a revolving endless cycle. But
so that's like, I'm sure I know you've heard of the things Andrew Huberman. He has like all his sleep protocols. And just a couple to add to your list would be viewing morning sunlight. You've heard of that one. You guys
grounding, get
Circadian
outside,
rhythm,
circadian rhythm.
So when you wake up, it's ideally as soon as you wake up, you want to see morning sunlight. And sometimes like I wake up before the sun's out most of the time. So, but as soon as you can, you want to get morning sunlight in your eyes without sunglasses or not through your car windshield. And that sets your circadian rhythm up to where, okay, like it's daytime now. And then when the sun starts to go down, like it tells your body, okay, it's time to wind down. And then also delaying your caffeine intake. If you're your morning coffee, delay that if you can an hour after you wake up. And that's also going to help with your rhythm, your energy waves. And then also stop drinking caffeine, like 10 to 12 hours before you go to bed.
Ideally, like for most people, probably before like noon.
Yeah, I would.
I try to not have much or any after noon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's a little bit different on that too,
Yeah.
but like just kind of play around with it. If you feel better, if you keep it before noon, then obviously do that. But for me, it doesn't seem to affect me too much if I have a little bit in the afternoon. But then another thing when it comes to sleep is you actually get the deepest and the best quality of sleep between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 or 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Yep.
And so if people are up till midnight, they only get a couple hours in that.
So if basically, if you can get even just, if you're sleeping between 10 and 2, those 4 hours are crucial.
Yeah.
The most crucial.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, you can get into the point of like sleep supplements or something like that. And then as far as like nutrition goes, because that's after sleep, I think nutrition is probably like the second most important thing.
Yep.
And then obviously there's the other like recovery protocols. We'll call those more of like the flavorings or like, special secret sauce sprinkles. Like it's not the whole dish, but it, adds a little something. But the nutrition, like that's also part of it. So if you're under eating on protein or just in calories in general, you're not going to recover as much. Your best performance is going to be at maintenance or even a little bit above your surplus calories of what you burn in a day. And then for your protein, like as long as it's the same as your lean body mass, so that would be whatever you would weigh if you had no fat mass at all, so just take that out of the equation. That or like 0.7 grams at least per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
More wouldn't really hurt you, and probably as long as you can get enough carbs and stuff too, because that's also really important with recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So getting like, as far as like action steps, I would have a good serving of protein. You'd want to separate it pretty well throughout the day. So right after your workout, you want to have protein, and like before your workout, like a protein shake or something like that, just to get some extra fuel. Protein and carbs after, and then before bed. It doesn't have to be right before bed, but maybe a couple hours before bedtime. If you go to bed at say 9, you'd want to have it at 7. Just have a good serving of protein there, and then that can kind of help carry you through the night.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you get more time to recover your muscles, and you have maximum recovery time for that.
Yeah, because when you're sleeping, you don't want your body to be breaking down food that you just ate. You want it to be relaxed, rest and digest is the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's what you want your body to be doing when you're sleeping, is digesting the food, sending it to the muscles, using it as nutrients instead of being in that process of breaking it down still when you're sleeping.
Yep.
Some other ones.
We could get into like the sprinkles now.
The sprinkles.
Definitely sleep and nutrition
are
going to be the number one thing.
It's like chocolate and vanilla. Now we're getting
Now we're getting the fancy ones.
Yeah. So like obviously, I think it's probably been a game changer for me because I was always pretty good at the other two, but like years and years ago, before I started doing CrossFit, like warming up was like, okay, put 135 on. And that's definitely not a good thing. And I see so many people do it. Like they walk in here, they don't even change their shoes, and they're on the bench press with 135, repping it out. And so a proper like dynamic, we were just talking about dynamic stretches. So stuff through movement. Yeah. So spend 5 or 10 minutes doing some dynamic stretches.
Sport specific.
Yeah, and stuff that's going to prepare you for what you're about to do. So if you're about to do a leg day, like do some air squats, maybe some lunges, some trunk rotations, some runner's lunges, side lunges, whatever. Get the blood flowing to the muscles. That's going to help you get a better workout, and it's going to help reduce risk for injury. It just gets the blood flowing, but you're also setting yourself up to recover better. If you're good and warmed up, have a good session. You're just preparing your body. And for me anyways, I think it helped dramatically with my, just like how my back felt and my joints felt, getting stretched out and getting warmed up beforehand. And then afterward, we've been doing a lot of foam rolling just to break up the muscle tissues, and then mobility work, stretching, stuff like that. So I think those are all really good tools just to stay feeling good, so you're not overly tight, overly sore as far as the feeliness goes. Those things can be really, really important. But yeah.
Yeah, and then it also just helps to get you. So another thing Huberman's talked about before, and other people, is having that recovery time after your workout. So you actually start. The faster you can get into a state of the parasympathetic, so like that rest and digest. The sooner you can get your body back to that and out of the fight or flight, you start recovering. So the way to do that is to have that carbs post-workout. The insulin spike actually calms your body down. It kind of shuts off that the cortisol, so you don't have that like fight or flight. Like if you go from your workout directly back to work and you're like rushing around, you kind of stay in that like high cortisol state. So having the carbs and having the stretching afterwards helps you to like calm your body down. So you're breathing, focusing on your breath, like getting that back under control to lower your heart rate, doing the stretches. Like that's probably one of the biggest benefits of stretching after your workout, rather than just like lengthening the muscles. It's like actually calming down. You're like, okay, we're done with our workout. You get back to normal or like baseline level, and then you can go on about your day.
Yeah.
But if you stayed in that like high cortisol, like very stressed out state all day, you're not recovering until you get out of that.
Yeah.
So
there's a reason they call it a warm up and a cool down. The cool down is meant to, okay, we're done. Let's cool off. Let's relax. That's why you don't just stop right after a really long intense run. You walk for a little bit, cool down, cool off, stretch, and then you go about your day. So yeah, good point.
Because I know there's times where like we get done with our workouts and then we have a client right next, so we have to like get ready for that and then go right into it. And I always feel like I have that more of like that cortisol, like I feel a little bit more of like the fight or flight, like my heart rate's still going, I'm still kind of like wired from it, versus like calm. And like if I had like 30 minutes to just like calm down before it, end up rushing around or something. That's happened before on like Saturday mornings right before my class, and I'm just like rushing around trying to get things set up, and then I'm just like all stressed out about it, and it's like I don't need to be stressed out, but it's just because I had that high cortisol from the workout still pulsing through my body, where I was just like running around trying to get everything ready, get a little bit more stressed out, where if I have time to just like chill out a little bit, you stretch, you recover, you let your heart rate come back down, and then you can go about your day. So we don't always do that, but the more times you can do that, the better.
For sure.
I think that it's pretty good. I mean, hopefully, you got some value from this. It's eye-opening that the recovery is just as important, if not, it's more important than training itself. I mean, you can do all the training you want, but if you're not getting enough protein, enough calories to fuel your body, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to actually get the results that you want. So, just take that as what it is, and hopefully start adopting some of these tools. Definitely start with the sleep. If you can't increase the amount of sleep you get, just focus on the quality. Maybe try some of the tools that we talked about, whether it's darkening the room, white noise, avoiding caffeine and light and food right before bed. Practice some of those things to wind down. I think it's actually easier to set a bedtime than like, okay, you wake up at the same time, so what can we do? It's like, let's go to bed a little bit earlier. For a lot of people, they could probably handle that because they have a certain time that they need to be up by. Obviously, you can't just sleep in. So try to go to bed earlier, and then focus on those little things with the nutrition, like pre and post workout, just getting enough protein throughout the day. Hopefully this all helps and people can get better results that way.
Yeah.
But just kind of see where you're at with your training and try to match the recovery to it. You may have to reduce your training like I did. That could be something a lot of people that start out, they want to be gung-ho and do as much as they possibly can, especially if they're in some sort of challenge or something. They think that more and more and more is better, when in reality, you have to just do what you can do and be able to match it with the recovery.
Throw the ego aside and
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thanks again for tuning in to the Trainer Talk. If you are ready to gain back control of your health and fitness, we would love to sit down and chat with you to see if we can put together a plan for you. All you have to do is head to TaylorHutchinsonFitness.net and book a free consult. Again, make sure you like and subscribe if you like the video, and hopefully we'll see you soon.